Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch Nation, welcome back to the epic RosterWatch Podcast, brought to you by RosterWatch.com. My name is Alex Dunlap, and joining me today is a man who is one of only two men in the world who can claim title to having at one point in his life being able to boss me around and tell me what to do at my own job. His name is Ian Kenyon. He's the deputy editor over at Bleacher Report for NFL. Ian, what the hell's going on, brother?
Not too much. How's it going on your end?
No, it's fine, man. If people don't know what I'm talking about, I used to write. I used to do some writing at Bleacher Report, and Ian for sure was the editor over there who would tell me the assignments, tell me what to do, tell me when I wasn't using enough embedded media or wasn't using strong enough language, etc. And do you know what, man? One of the things and I don't even know if you guys still have this as a one of the because I know like stylistically outfits change and stuff like that, but whenever I was writing at Bleacher Report, I remember and the thing out of everything that I took from it that the editors would always suggest is I remember you said, and at the time it was Colin who said, don't ever qualify something by saying in my opinion or by saying if we're being honest, or it's like we're in the business of giving opinions. It's like it should be you come to this site, you come to read this. You should understand that what you're reading is something that I think, and it's something that I feel is important enough to write about and to put my name on. Clearly, you don't need to qualify that by saying in my opinion. It seems a lot stronger to say CeedeeALmbd is the best wide receiver in this class than to say CeedeeALmbd is the best wide receiver in this class in my opinion. It's something that at the time you guys would get on me about, and now I don't allow anybody to write in my opinion or similar qualifiers over on RosterWatch. So
you're kind of discounting your opinion at that point because you're saying like, well, I think this, but it might not be actually true. So exactly.
So yeah, man. So y'all's your effect on me has lasted this long, at least in that regard. So
glad to hear it.
Hey, but about football, I know you're a Green Bay Packers fan. You live up there between Minneapolis and Green. By the way, is it fucking still cold as ice up there? Like, is it still super cold?
It's actually super nice here. It's 45 degrees here in mid-March, which is rare. I mean, it was freezing cold a month ago. We had a week where it was like -10 for a week straight, but it's been a beautiful winter. Like, outside of about a 10-day stretch, it's been between 30 and 40 every day, which is all we can ask for right now.
That's still cold. That's still cold as ice to me. But yeah, anyway, you're up there between Minnesota and Green Bay. Clearly you follow all these NFL teams and all these NFL players at Bleacher Report. You guys actually right now have the draft stuff you have going on, which is really cool. I think Brandon Thorne is doing the offensive line write-ups, Justice Mosqueda, edge guys and stuff. Who are the other two? You said you had Corey Giddings. He used to be a scout for the Giants. What's he doing? DBs. Can you give people a breakdown about what you guys are doing right now with the draft stuff that you're overseeing there at Bleacher Report?
Yeah, so we set up a BRNFL scouting department where we have Nate Tice handling quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. Brandon Thorne handling offensive linemen, Justice Mosqueda handling front seven players, and Corey Giddings handling defensive backs. Corey was a scout for the Giants and worked with Michigan State and Northwestern a little bit. And Justice has done a ton of work with front seven players. He worked for Optimum Scouting for a while. And then Brandon's done a ton of stuff with offensive linemen over the years. And Nate's a former college quarterback who has a show on The Athletic podcast. And he's kind of like a quarterback, running back, receiver, guru in that area. So we have a good set of scouts who are looking at their position groups, and we set up a grading scale for them. And they're working through about 300 scouting reports this year that'll be out the weekend of the draft. And it's been really fun. We're collaborating on big boards. We put one out last week, which garnered some attention because we had some unique grades. Landon Dickerson and Rashad Bateman were both in the top 10. But
what, really?
Yeah,
Rashad Bateman was in the top 10 overall.
Overall, he was the number 9 overall player and number 2 receiver behind Devontae Smith. Yes.
So no Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase, was he at 3?
Jamar Chase was number 3. Yes.
What is so? Look, I was leading in to say I want to ask you about Green Bay because you live there by Green Bay. You're a Green Bay fan, but I'm going to table that because this is interesting to me. Devontae Smith. How worried are you guys about the weight, the BMI, stuff like that, and whenever you take his evaluation into consideration in his evaluation the fact that Jalen Waddle wasn't healthy for most of this year and maybe he would not have been as productive, sort of a late breakout senior season if Waddle would have been healthy. Did you take those things into consideration? And what is it that went into these grades that had him grading? Because it feels like it's a little bit. It's actually kind of contrarian to have Jamar Chase's 3rd. I think I haven't seen anybody that has Bateman ahead of Chase. I don't think it's as contrarian to have Devontae Smith as number 1 because he's the Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver and everything. But people do say I feel a little bit safer with Chase because of the earlier breakout age. That maybe not as many worries about the BMI stuff that people talk about. Can you just kind of talk about that top 3 and what sort of went into those rankings?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for Nate, but just in conversations we've had, I know when we originally talked about it, he thought he was going to be a little bit lower on Devonta Smith because he's more of a big receiver guy. Like he's not big into the Tutu Atwell, Jalen Garden type. Those are guys you take on day 3 because, you don't want to be the team that takes Tavon Austin top 10 or Henry Ruggs top 10. So more on the bigger receiver mold. But when he watched Devonta Smith, he was so good. He'd get so much separation. He plays big. He's 6'1", 170, but he attacks the ball like he's 195 pounds. So, and he can control the ball through the catch point. So from that perspective, I think everyone's just betting on the outlier, right? Devonta Smith is going to be an outlier if he hits. There aren't receivers his size with that BMI that go top 10 that hit very often. The comp for him is typically Marvin Harrison, Torrey Holt, that type of archetype. But you have to hope that he becomes that player. There's only one Marvin Harrison over the last 30 years. But he could be that outlier, and that's what you're kind of betting on when you grade him that highly. As for Bateman, I know when we talked about him, he's just so polished. He's kind of got the Michael Thomas type body, route tree, everything. He's so polished for a receiver.
That's the second time this week I've heard the Michael Thomas comp for him.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot of different places, and it's one of those things where you see people putting Kadarius Toney above him, but Kadarius Toney was not a traditional wide receiver at Florida, and he's undersized. He's a position convert. Where you see someone like Bateman, he's your prototypical outside wide receiver profiles. I also see a lot like Devontae Adams in Rashad Bateman. I don't think he'll go top 10, but that's not really what the grade's about. It's more about what they could be. So that's kind of where we're at on those two. And then Jamar Chase, he got a top 15 grade too. I think it's just more about how strongly he felt about Bateman and Devonta Smith.
No, that's it's interesting to see, and of course they'll be able to find all that stuff. And is that currently up? I wish I would have known that was up. I would have had a look at it before we came on. But but people can find that right now at Bleacher Report, or they can find it on your Twitter. I'm sure you've tweeted it out. Yeah,
it's the Bleacher Report NFL Draft Scouting Department's big board that dropped last week. It's went through the top 100. Grades were done by the scouts. like I said, I don't want to speak too much for their opinions, but that's from what I gathered talking to them, that's kind of where they're at on those prospects.
I don't mean to put you in a spot where you're having to speak for them, but as far as the running backs, just can you tell me the general order of the top guys? Do they have Najee 1 or ETN, or who do they have at 1?
I gotta look it up.
Okay. I don't, like I said, I don't mean to put you on the spot. And the show sheet that I had Jen send over was absolutely pathetic. I should have I should have had you a little more prepared.
So yeah, Najee is number 1, with Javonte Williams, Michael Carter, and Travis Etienne 4th.
Travis Etienne 4. Do you think that might change after he weighed in at 215? I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah, it could. I haven't talked about it, but I could definitely see that getting bumped up if he's, I think a lot of people thought he would come in high 190s, low 200s, and to come in at 215 and run low 4.4s is impressive.
That's impressive for sure. Aaron Jones has been impressive. What do you think of that segue? He's been impressive. He's been more impressive than it feels like the Green Bay staff ever gave him credit for, man. Like I see you at the I see you at the combine some years, and you know how we get to address these coaches and these GMs and stuff. I'm always asking, like, God damn it, did you finally see enough from Aaron Jones to give this dude the rock during the season? Like, not to have there be such a committee, and they, you have these guys saying like, I remember last year LaFleur. He said, like, yeah, he had a great year, and we loved the way he ran all this stuff. And he goes, actually, we think that we're probably going to add a third guy. I'm just like, what? I just thought you said that you liked him, like all this, and they do. True their word. They go and add AJ Dillon. Now it looks like Aaron Jones. It looks like they're going to let him test free agency. Do you think? First off, what do you think of that? And secondly, is there any slight change? There's some whispers that maybe the Packers actually still maybe want him a little bit. Do you think that that's a possibility? Do you think he's gone? What do you think about Aaron Jones?
So I have some cognitive dissonance when I think about Aaron Jones because, like, as a fan, I love Aaron Jones. He's one of the best, 7 or 8 running backs in the league. He's part of the engine that makes that offense run. Probably the best running back they've had since Amon Green. Of course, you want to keep that on the roster, but in the current construct of the NFL, giving a 26-year-old running back a second contract where you're talking about $8 to $12 million a year, that hasn't really worked out for anyone aside from 1 year of Dalvin Cook so far. So I would be on the camp of not retaining Aaron Jones and just taking a running back in the 3rd to 5th round to pair with AJ Dillon and just rolling forward, especially for a team that's cash strapped like Green Bay is right now. But I think they kind of made a mistake last year in taking AJ Dillon. 1, because I didn't think his profile was so high that you needed to take him in the 2nd round. But 2, just wait a year on that. Now they're losing a year of a running back on a rookie contract because they took AJ Dillon last year instead of taking a running back, in the 2nd to 3rd round this year. And then there was the report that Green Bay offered Aaron Jones $9 million a year in season, and he turned that down. But then Green Bay is not franchise tagging Aaron Jones at $8 million for this year. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense what's going on. I don't know if some of the reports are wrong or inaccurate, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me what they're doing at running back. And to me, I would just reset it and roll with AJ Dillon and a rookie this year.
Well, what about Jamal Williams? I know that he's set to be free. I was under the impression that they kind of liked him. Do you think that they like him? What do you think the future holds for Jamal Williams?
I think they really like him as a locker room guy. He's known as being like a glue guy, and he's he's big with the Green Bay media and the community and local stuff around Green Bay. People around here love him, but I don't know what he's going to command in free agency. If he's commanding, $3 to $5 million, I wouldn't pay that for my running back 2, running back 3. I would just roll with a rookie at that point. But he is someone that I would be more apt to retain Jamal Williams on a low-level contract than I would pay big money to Aaron Jones.
Jamal Williams has averaged like 750 or 800 a year so far. It feels like, it doesn't feel like he's going to he would definitely command a lot less than Aaron Jones for sure. I think it would be interesting to bring. I think it would be good for if you could get him back on a cheap deal, you get AJ Dillon. I think I would like that. But they could also draft someone new. I don't know. I don't really know who would be in this class. It feels like after the top few runners, it falls off pretty quick. Then again, with a guy like AJ Dillon, even some of these smaller, the running backs that, the Gainwells and the Michael Carters and some of these dudes who are a little bit smaller could be a little bit more of a jitterbug sort of compliment to a big bruiser like AJ Dillon, I suppose. Yeah,
I'd like to see them bring in Michael Carter. I have actually done a lot of, TDN's mock draft machine where I give Green Bay Michael Carter in the third round pretty much every time because he looks a lot like Aaron Jones to me when I watch him run. And I think if they were to grab him in round 3 and pair him with AJ Dillon, they'd be a fine duo. That's all you need. I think from a rushing perspective, Green Bay's issue is going to be more about replacing Corey Linsley than it will be replacing Aaron Jones, because I think the running back position is a little bit more interchangeable, whereas center's a little bit harder to find.
Are they going to finally address I didn't want to ask you all this about Green Bay, but now that we're talking about the offense, I kind of have just 2 more questions. Are they going to finally address anything to get other outside weapons besides just Devontae Adams, or are they just happy with just peppering that guy and having these dudes, these Alan Lazards and these MVSs and stuff like that? I mean, they're like, well, we got to the NFC Championship. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And also, it feels like Tunyon came on a lot last year. Is Tunyon a dynasty buy for you? Those are my last two questions.
So first of all, I think Green Bay will have to address receiver this year because MVS and St. Brown are both free agents next year. So they're going to have to grab someone in there to develop this year to take that job next year so that you're not locked into a situation where you're giving Valdez Scantling, a 4-year, $45 million extension. Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
But being serious, I mean, if he has, if he's their wide receiver 2 next year and has 800 yards and touchdowns, that's what he's going to ask for. So
I think he'd get laughed out of the room.
So I think it's one of those things where you need to start thinking about your leverage in those contract negotiations and grab someone in round 1, round 2, round 3 to take that wide receiver 2 role long term. Tunyon, I think, is definitely a buy. I know Rodgers seems to really like him. He throws to him a lot. He's his red zone guy. I don't think Sternberger is good enough to overtake Tunyon next year if he gets healthy. And I think Tanyon's undervalued at this point. Like, a lot of people don't know what the future has for him because he's a restricted free agent. But if he comes back to Green Bay, he could have another 10 touchdown season for sure.
Yeah, that's very, very, very interested in Robert Tunyon myself right now in Dynasty, and we play in a Dynasty league together, the Siege Dynasty Invitational. Just wanted to ask you a couple questions here about this thing. You brought it up beforehand, so I'll just ask. I'll just ask you. In essence, so I made the trade late last year to basically acquire CeedeeLamb with my pick in this league where I lost during the course of the season in a super flex league. Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, and Christian McCaffrey. My season was over before it started. So I ended up with the second overall pick once I realized that I was not in win now mode. I feel more I traded it for CeedeeLamb because for one I wanted the Dak to CeedeeLamb connection for the rest of the rest of CeeDee Lamb's contract there. It was a little bit of a risk. I wasn't sure the Dak contract was going to get done, but I wanted that hookup between those two. CeeDee Lamb was my clear number one wide receiver in the 2020 class. I looked at this 2021 class and I realized these guys at the very top are very, very good. But 2020 felt like a historic class to me, sort of like 2014, where, if this is my top guy in this class, I've seen it for a year already. That it was a trade I wanted to make happen. And it felt like in our Twitter DM thread, Nixon and some of these other dudes were a little tilted, like maybe thinking I overpaid. I was like, you guys, I am thrilled with this trade. What do you think? Like, you don't have to tell me what you think of the trade, but maybe you could tell me, how do you let's just say in this dynasty league or in a dynasty league like this, super flex tight end premium, where do you stack CeeDee Lamb up with these rookies, and where do you stack up Justin Jefferson with these rookies? Or, I think it's a good way to give context to hear people's opinions about sort of where the guys who are young emerging veterans stack up against these guys that we're kind of having to take a little bit sight unseen.
So I'm going to hedge a little bit and say that I think a lot of it has to do with roster construction. I was part of the group that felt you may have overpaid, but then when you look at your roster construction, it makes a lot more sense because you already have Dak Prescott, you already have Joe Burrow. There's no need to add, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson at the top of your draft. It makes more sense for you to add CeeDee Lamb than it does to add Jamar Chase or
That's fair.
So I think it's one of those things where I actually like the trade for you because it makes your team better, and that's the most important thing. As far as the receivers go, I think CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, especially what we saw last year, they have to be above Jamar Chase. They have to be above Rashad Bateman and Devonta Smith. Those guys had historic rookie seasons. CeeDee Lamb was on pace for, I think it was like 1,350 yards before Dak's injury. And Justin Jefferson just had the most receiving yards ever for a rookie, playing kind of a hybrid wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 role for the first half of the season with Adam Thielen. He should be the go-to number 1 guy moving forward. So I am higher on Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb than pretty much any other player in this class other than Trevor Lawrence. So I think you actually made out pretty well there.
Cool. Well, I'd love to get the positive endorsement from Ian Kenyon here. And then let's just go over your roster a little bit, and I'll go through position by position. I will say, from looking at the very beginning, though, I think that especially your wide receivers, it's like your team has basically your core, and you might feel differently, but it feels like your core is J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf. And that's an extremely awesome core to build around. I mean, those are some really, really, really good young wide receivers, and I think the J.K. Dobbins piece, maybe even more so. But who do you like better in Dynasty? Just out of do you like Josh Jacobs or J.K. Dobbins for the rest of their careers?
For the rest of their careers, I would take Dobbins just because he's tethered to Lamar Jackson in that rushing offense. I think, he's a guy who he's younger than Jacobs. He's got more pass catching potential than Jacobs. And I think he'll have a high-end running back 1 season yet in the next 3 years. Whereas Jacobs may be more of a low-end RB1.
Do you think, and that's how we have it in this current, on our current Superflex rankings, it looks like, J.K. Dobbins only 22. J.K. Dobbins 22. Josh Jacobs only going to be 23. So both of those guys are still real young. It's a really good kind of 1-2 punch there as far as your running back core, and with the quarterbacks. So you got Bridgewater, Mariota, Minshew. Stafford is what's going to save your ass this year, along with Tagovailoa. What do you think about the move from? I love Stafford and Sean McVay's offense, dude. Yeah,
I'm the type that I'm now trying to move Stafford because I'm trying to capitalize on the boost he's getting from being in LA. I would much rather flip Stafford for a younger, younger QB that has some higher upside for the long term, but he's in a great spot to produce for the next 2 to 3 years for sure.
And then what about what you saw to Tua? Do you think that how good do you think is, because we had Brian Flores come out this week and say, look, man, he had a bad hip injury. He was coming off of this last year. He had some ups, he had some downs. You all saw it, but he did make some of the good throws. We were pleased with them. Do you think that is true? I didn't like the way Tua looked last year, and maybe I was not being fair to him because maybe somewhere in the back of my mind I was comparing him to Justin Herbert and thinking, that was a bad mistake that was made by the Dolphins. With that being said, do you think it's true that they like him? Do you think there's any chance that they could just? I mean, they're out of the quarterback business, right? They're out of the quarterback business in this draft with a top 5 pick, correct? Or do you think that they could end up maybe taking a quarterback?
I think they could possibly take one. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. With Tua, I'm kind of nervous about Tua because he didn't look great, and I don't know what his defining trait is. He's not overly big. He doesn't have a huge arm. He's not like a 70% completion type of guy. He's not super mobile. Where is he going, especially in fantasy? How is he going to jump into QB1 territory? To me, he's going to perpetually be in that QB, 13 to QB 20 range, more so than he will be a QB1. So I think he's a solid guy to hold on to as, QB2, QB3, but he's not your high-end QB1, and I don't think he has that type of potential either.
Do you think that what do the Dolphins need to do? What do they need to do? Because it would seem like they were, last year they were on the precipice. They've appeared on the precipice. You look at Jesus, look at what Flores has done here. It didn't seem like they should have had the record that they had. Is it getting that offensive line better? Is it developing a running game? What do you do? What's your plan if you're the Dolphins going into this draft and into free agency?
I think they need to figure out, if I were the Dolphins, I would be calling up the Texans and trying to get Deshaun Watson. That team is ready to win. So
yeah, I'd be sick.
Yeah. And if they can't get Deshaun Watson, I would be looking at ways to upgrade from Tua. I don't know what their grades are on Justin Fields or Zach Wilson, but I personally would have them ahead of Tua. So I think that's kind of the answer for them. I actually have a bet out on the Dolphins to win the Super Bowl this year because they are. I got it in at 28-1. They were very undervalued and underrated last year. They had, going into week 17, they had the same point differential as the Bills. They were blowing teams out. They were on a giant winning streak for the last 10 weeks of the season. They're a team that could come into this year and be a 13-3 team if they get the quarterback position figured out.
Yeah, I forgot what I remember that there was an impressive stat about their turnover ratio too. Just a really attacking defense. All right, so what about your wide receivers here? So Brandon Ayuk, you gotta love having him. AJ Brown. I mean, it goes without saying these guys are dudes you'll give your left nut to have in any dynasty league. DK Metcalf, same story with him. But you got some of these dudes that are a little bit and then here's the other thing. It's a good mix of the kind of speculative, kind of up and comers. Darnell Mooney is a guy that I'm trying to trade for in some of my dynasty leagues right now. I'm trying to trade for Paris Campbell in some of my dynasty leagues right now. I like all those guys. But yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to catch you.
No, all good. I build my teams around receivers every year. I'm in 7 or 8 dynasty leagues. Every single one of them looks just like this. Running backs are so fluid year to year. Receivers, they're good for 7 to 8 years. So from my perspective, I always stack my receivers. I grab all the young guys, between age 20 and 24, and then as soon as they get to be about 27, 28, I ship them out for younger guys. And that's just kind of how it always works for me. The interesting trade and the one that's kind of unique to the list of receivers I have is I was going to talk about. I traded DeAndre Swift for Josh Jacobs and Juju Smith-Schuster. Josh Jacobs and Odell Beckham. Which, to me, DeAndre Swift is above Josh Jacobs in a dynasty board, but to me, he's not Odell Beckham away, which was an interesting trade that went down in December this year.
That was with Nixon because he drafted Jacobs. Yeah, because he actually, I think he sniped me. Or no. What it was is I forgot Jacobs was still on the board. And I forgot who I ended up taking. I think I ended up taking the 1.02 rookie pick. Anyway, what do you think? What do you think about Odell? What do you think? I mean, what's the? He's like between him. I'd like to hear what you think about him and Juju. They feel like I know Juju's still young, but they feel like players in similar positions that are both a little bit precarious. Are you bullish on both of them? Or are you just kind of I don't really know if I'm bullish, but I'm still going to hold and see because they're terrific talents. How do you feel about them as dynasty assets?
I think Odell is undervalued right now. I think a lot of people are kind of treating him like he's Josh Gordon at this point. Like, everyone just beyond the pale. He's just done or something. And yeah, like everyone knows he was great 5 years ago, but thinks it's just done and he's never going to come back. But just 16 months ago, he had a 1,000-yard season. Like, he's not a bad player, and he was playing in an offense that I don't think was really tailored to what he does well, I would say. And I think if he can get into, I don't think he's going to return to a wide receiver one in Cleveland, but if he can find a new team, a new start, and get somewhere where he's tethered to a strong QB1, no reason at age 29, 30, 31, he couldn't have, a 1,200-yard season yet.
What about you? What about whenever you look at Juju, do you think he needs a Big Ben type?
I think Juju needs a new team as well. I was a huge Juju Smith-Schuster fan.
Everybody was in Dynasty. People had him as the consensus Dynasty wide receiver one like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, he at age 22 had 21, 22 had the best age 21 season in NFL history. He had 111, 1,400, and 7, which is nuts. They're a player.
Who does that? Who does that? It's exactly right.
Devontae Smith is older than Juju was back then. So,
that's wild, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. But ever since then, it's just been worst case scenario for everything around Juju. He lost Antonio Brown across from him. Big Ben got hurt. The Steelers drafted Chase Claypool. They drafted Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson's turned out to be really good. Chase Claypool's turned out to be really good. I just think it's been a string of bad luck for Juju. And if he lands on a new team in a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 role, he can be a strong wide receiver 2 in fantasy. I don't think he'll have more 110, 1,400-yard seasons, but he could be maybe a 80, 908 guy, for the right team. And that's still a good player. And he's only 24 years old, which is crazy because he's entering his 5th season.
I got to ask you this, and I'm well aware of your time, Ian. So this will be my last question for you. You have DK Metcalf on this roster. I've been going back and forth. It feels like this. So this will be a 2-part question. Do you buy the Russell Wilson hype about him possibly the trade to Chicago? It feels like, to me, it seems stupid at first, but people keep saying it and saying it and saying it. And I'm not sure if I'm just being what's the word? Whenever people tell you, they just say something that doesn't matter if it's true, as long as they if I'm being gaslit into believing that this could be true, or whether it's or whether it's just there could be something there, because where there's smoke, there's fire. Are you buying into it? Part two. So this is 3 parts. Part 2 of it is, does that worry you at all about DK Metcalf, and how much? And then 3, right now in this league, if somebody offered you Tyreek Hill for DK Metcalf, given these concerns, would you take the deal?
I would. First of all, I'm going to answer the first one.
Okay.
Well, the last one. I mean, I would not take Tyreek Hill for DK Metcalf just because of age.
All right, fair enough.
5-year age gap.
You've already laid out that you're a complete ageist.
Yes, I'm a huge age. There's not going to be anybody on my roster other than quarterbacks that are over 27 years old. There's just not.
Right.
But so that would be my answer for that. For the Russ questions, I don't think anybody understands what's going on right now with Seattle and this talk of Chicago, because Chicago is so out of left field. Like, nobody understands it. You listen to NFL Live, you listen to podcasts, you see chatter on Twitter. Everyone's flabbergasted. Like, why is Chicago even in this discussion? So there's no football reason. There's no media reason. I mean, I guess you could say it's a big market, but then why not have the Jets or the LA teams? So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from that perspective. But it's got to be there for a reason. That honestly makes me think it's probably quite true, because why else would that rumor be out there at that point? So I kind of buy that Russ is unhappy. I don't think that he'll get moved, though, because Seattle doesn't have any reason to do it. It does make me concerned about DK Metcalf a little bit. Like, I'd maybe give him, a 5 to 10% discount just off of that. But my main concern with DK is he's being treated right now as a wide receiver 1 overall or wide receiver 2 overall in Dynasty, when he's not going to be a 100-catch guy. And we know Pete Carroll, at the end of the day, when it gets to like week 10, week 11, fantasy playoffs, week 14, 15, he's going to revert back to running the ball 25 times a game, not giving DK 12 catches. So from a fantasy perspective, I think the appeal of DK Metcalf is higher than what your return is going to be.